Hello, I'm Laura Furiosi, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom. Do you really have to respond to every false accusation that you receive from a co-parent? Today's episode is about the legal implications of whether you respond or not, and we're going to be covering some guidelines, general guidelines, to help you decide whether you should. Hello, Mum.
Hello, Laura.
So today is all about the slinging matches. One of our members wrote in and said, do we have to respond to every or engage in every slinging match? And today we're going to talk about, do they?
Yes.
But before we do, once a month we choose a wonderful reviewer.
I love this.
It's your favourite part. Yeah. We've sat down and read through all the reviews, and Mum's had a lovely time listening to them. She's really happy with what people have written. Today's review, we've chosen, this person gets a free consult with Mum. All you have to do is email us at thedivorcecoursepodcast@gmail.com and we will arrange that for you. So this is Stone488. This is your review and I'd love everyone to hear it. And Mum, you absolutely love it. The best podcast for a DIY divorce. I recently found this podcast and I have binge listened to almost all the episodes. There's 90-something over the last few weeks. The information is presented so clearly and on a level that I can understand. I will forever be grateful that I found this podcast to help me through the most stressful time of my life. The 4 personality types have been a massive eye-opener for me, and listening to you both describe the amicable in sheep's clothing has made me very aware of the little things that are happening around me that have made me realise things might not be as amicable as I originally thought. Thank you for everything you both do and helping so many people get through this difficult time in their lives. I look forward to each and every new episode. Thank you, Stone488. We absolutely loved that.
That's lovely.
Review.
Thank you.
We also got some other lovely ones as well, and we thank you to everybody who's written in. But Stone488, you are the one. Get to have a chat with Mum. And if you are listening today and you really love our podcast, any reviews that we get helps reach out to other people. So if you felt lost and now feel so much more empowered and less overwhelmed, give that gift to somebody else, and all you have to do is just write a review, and we would love we love reading them. So thank you. All right, so back on with the job. So Mum, so many people write in about this question and get caught up in the arguments. Oh, they've said this about me. Why do I have to respond, or do I just ignore? Because in the world of narcissists, etc., there is this thing called grey rocking.
Yes.
Where they say the best way to stop a narcissist from continuing in your life is to grey rock them, which basically means become a little grey rock and ignore everything they say. Don't let anything bother you. But the problem with that is when you're going through divorce and potential going to court, if you feel like, well, I have to correct the record, I have to, these false accusations, I have to address them, because what happens if that goes to court? So this is where everyone's going to be leaning in going, Mum, what do we do?
Yes,
what
Mum,
do we do?
what do we do?
What do we do? Because everyone calls you Mum.
Yes.
So do you have to respond to every false accusation?
Sometimes you have to respond and sometimes you don't.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it. I guess if it's something that if you didn't deny it, they might use against you in court if you haven't got court orders.
Yes.
You really do need to respond and say no matter how silly it is. You need to say, no, that didn't happen. Otherwise, if you end up in trial a year's time or something or less, they will be able to say, Your Honour, this was put to the mother or the other person and they never responded. They did not deny it. Right. So you do have to, for the record, deny these things.
So the things that could be used in court as evidence, you could listen to the tell it to the judge stuff. So if they're accusing you of being 10 minutes late, or if they're accusing you of like little things that don't matter, then you don't need to respond?
No, I don't think so.
But
you'll have to use your own judgment.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if they're accusing you of major things that are horrible,
like leaving a child alone or something, or you need
hurting them, or
you need to respond immediately and say, I didn't do that.
Okay.
That's not what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really a good idea would be to look at the Family Law Act.
Yep. And whatever would fit in.
To any of these accusations fall into the Family Law Act.
And stuff that really goes to the welfare of the child, So if you've taken them to the dentist and you're 10 minutes, 20 minutes late getting there or something, or they're late for school one day, that's not a big problem. But you'd have to address it if a person was out of school for a long time. If you kept the children home for a week or so, you have to address that and explain.
What if they're late for school every day, or like if it builds up, then yes, you'd probably need to...
You'd need to have a little look at yourself.
Yes, true. That's true.
If you've got an unavoidable reason, you need to let the other side know. So what you've got to do is kind of, if they think they've got something, you need to, don't let them think they've got something. You need to respond to it so they go, oh, okay.
So I guess you think of it like a firefighter. You're hosing down these little flames that they're setting up.
Otherwise.
And look, I'm sure there's a lot of co-parents that don't, but there seems to be some co-parents from our members and listeners that are setting up little traps.
All the time.
Little traps. Here's another trap for you. Here's another trap. Or the high conflict people, not the manipulative ones, but the high conflict is like, oh, I can argue with them about this.
Yes.
I can have a go at them for being 5 minutes late. So you're the firefighter as the other co-parent, the sensible co-parent, hopefully, and you're going to go, all right, I'm going to put the flames on. I'm going to water this one down.
Because it's important. It could get bigger.
Yes. Or I'm just going to smother it with a blanket because I don't need to respond at all. And if I don't give it any oxygen,
it won't continue. Or if you're still to go to court yet and you haven't got orders yet, you might say, these are ridiculous and lame. Yes. However, if I don't deny them, then, you know, I'm setting myself up for an accusation.
Okay.
So you at least, so sometimes it's because the court thinks you should put the other person's mind at rest.
Right.
If they're legitimately worried about a child.
Okay.
Yeah.
So unfortunately with manipulative controlling, they could just pretend they're worried.
Yes.
So I think what you've got to maybe do though, Mum, and can you explain how our listeners should do this? If they're the firefighter and they're putting out 20 fires a day, that's a lot of fires and you're going to be exhausted.
You won't have any time to do anything else.
So can you wait for it to get joined together and respond?
I love your analogies. How about we do it this way?
Let's not set everything on fire.
You put out the big fires. You put out, if you can see that something has the potential to be a problem for you later on, deal with it.
Yeah.
In accordance with your assessment of how urgent it is. If it's about something happening this weekend, answer straight away. If it's about something in general, you could probably wait a week or so.
Right.
If it's little niggledy-bum things, they probably don't even They probably don't even need their own email on each point. Don't get beaten up by everyone and go into that detail where they're just nitpicking. It's really nitpicking.
Yes.
And you've got to be careful because if you ultimately end up in court with this, if they accuse you of something and you write back and respond to each one, what the court will do is see equal-sized correspondence from each of you in unimportant points.
And
they will, what do they say?
They'll attribute equal blame.
Yeah, these parents... these parents, the judge will say, there's no credit to either of you. This correspondence does not do you credit. So what you're doing is trying to condense it enough to protect yourself by putting a response in at the time, because you don't want them going to court and saying, I wrote and said this and she's never denied it. Yes. Or he's never objected.
Okay,
yeah,
so that is a legal implication.
It is a legal implication, yeah.
General advice only, but if they accuse you of something and you don't say, I didn't do that, that's ridiculous, or I didn't do that, here's the correct facts, they could say in court, she didn't respond.
Or he didn't respond. He didn't deny it.
Yeah, she didn't deny it. Okay, so and another thing, like you're saying, is instead of it just looking like a parent looking at kids arguing.
Yes.
And their eyes glazing over.
It's the pair of you go to your rooms.
Yes. If they can just see it's one person that's nitpicking, and the other person, hopefully our listeners, just going, you know what, here's a short response that summarises everything that you've accused me of in the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
That wasn't urgent.
Yeah.
And then so that if a judge did look at it, then they would see, oh my goodness, this person's just constant.
Yes, and the on each point.
So you were saying that you could collate your responses if it's not urgent and basically just get rid of all the drama there.
So what you do is you'd be writing back and say, and you could even attach their email or whatever it is that gave you, if it's in a parenting app, respond in that thread and just say, look, I've read all these letters, and if it's been a lot, just say, I've read the 12 emails you've sent me since last Friday or whatever, just like a little bit of sarcastic, quantify. And it seems to me your main complaints are 1, 2, 3, and kind of one might be being late, you're alleged like being late, or one might be you're worried about the school uniforms or the toothbrushes or something, just sort of, or you're worried of, I don't know, whatever, niggly other little thing. I didn't tell you about stuff at school. And that might be, there might be 15 emails or things about just really those 3 topics. So then you just answer, you number them, which takes the power away, I think.
Yeah.
And then you respond with the number 1, and then you put, your
answer.
You put the question, and then you respond to that. And I think in general, you say at the bottom, so you answer them generally, like, she's been late this week because we've had to do this.
Yeah.
Or I've cancelled that dental appointment because of this. And then at the bottom, just say, look, I haven't responded in detail to all your emails. But I will do if they become if the accusations you've made ever become relevant.
So that's
take out ever, because that does sound sarcastic.
So this is the co-parenting hack of the year. So you were telling me before that a judge told you guys to do this. Yeah. So can you talk everybody through exactly what they should do in that regards? And this is general advice only, but how it saves their butt for legal implications later. If that, and I know a lot of our listeners are just so worried. Oh, but if I don't respond, what if that gets brought up in court? And so it's like this battle in their heads. Yeah. And I think a lot of them maybe you don't know what's more important and what's not, because you just think everything is. Yes. Because you're just worried.
And you don't know in the future if something might turn out to be important.
So what's this co-parenting life court hack that people can use
it's that
to alleviate their worry?
Alleviate that. And that is really, like I was saying, to say at the bottom, look, I haven't addressed in detail all of the complaints that you've raised. However, I reserve the right to do so if they become relevant.
Right. Okay. And then that way you're not ignoring it, so they can say in court, oh, they didn't respond, so they must have meant it.
Because you will have done a little denial of some of the things.
Yes. Yeah. But if later it does come relevant, then you're like, well, see, I said I'd respond, and now I am.
This is what I would have said.
Yes.
And you've got to be careful, because I feel for people who are worried about putting a foot wrong. And if you've got a confident person just nagging you, you must be walking around in real distress, waiting for the phone to ding and another accusing message. And if you've come from a relationship where you were being dominated or controlled, and you felt like you were in the wrong, you immediately slip back into that headspace, and it's just terrible. Yeah. So hopefully this will help. So you deal with the urgent ones. I don't think it's the serious ones it's not whether it's serious or not, it's whether it's urgent and serious. You answer that straight away. The other stuff, you can't really tell what's going to be important until later on as the case proceeds, but you can lump their concerns and send one email every fortnight.
And cover your butt.
Yeah, cover your butt. Really, CYA, they say cover your bottom.
Oh, really?
And that way the other person is not sort of taking up too much brain space, and they're not controlling you in the day. You could spend all day answering all these silly things.
And I think, like we're talking, when it comes to manipulative and controlling, that's probably their aim, to continue to control you through accusations, because they go, well, if I throw this at it or him, he's going to have to respond. Yep. And that way I'm communicating. And in the narcissist world, there's this grey rock theory where you're meant to just not respond at all.
But you can't do that.
But you can't do that. So there's yellow rock, which some people have started talking about, which is where you have to respond to some things, but you don't respond.
Yes, it's more broad.
To the stuff that's not relevant.
Yeah, and don't give them any pleasure out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one thing. The way to not give a manipulative, controlling person pleasure is to take out the emotion.
Yes.
So because that's what they're looking for.
To number it.
Yeah.
That's why I like to put the numbers, particularly if you've got a lot of niggly little messages about the drink bottle or the shoes or something. When you number them in a list and put one of them is drink bottle, number 2 is shoes.
Yeah, it looks
ridiculous. Yes.
Yeah. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are some genuine reasons why co-parents might write and say, hey, could you maybe brush so-and-so's hair every like at least so they don't come back with a giant knot. I get it. That is helpful.
That's okay.
But I guess if people are just doing it because they want to fight with you, so in high conflict, if you're 10 minutes late, they're going to go, great, she's 10 minutes late, or great, he's 10 minutes late. I can now complain and fight about it.
Yes.
But in that instance, go listen to our Tell It to the Judge episode. Being 10 minutes late isn't a big deal.
No.
You're not going to get put in jail. You're not going to be contravened for 10 minutes late, as long as it's for reasonable reasons.
And you might find, if you look at it, that it's almost a continuation of the arguments you had as you were breaking up.
Yes.
And so you don't want that to continue.
No.
And, of course, when it goes to court, if it does, and the other person attaches all these emails of harassment and of all the complaints, your response that we just sort of decided there is quite reasonable and sensible and covers your bottom.
Yes.
If you need to then later on go back and give more detail. But it also stops the court dealing with you like, as parents, we deal with kids when I dealt with you guys when you were fighting. It was like both of you go to your rooms.
Both of you are naughty. Both of you go to your rooms. Or a teacher in a classroom where they're like, come on, you're all in trouble. When there might be one kid that's just a really good kid.
Yes.
So if you, I guess if they presented an affidavit, look at all these constant complaints and false accusations. Here's my very level-headed, brief, without emotion responses, they'll see who the troublemaker is.
That's right.
You don't want to fall into the trap of becoming the troublemaker or looking like you're part of the fight.
They can be forgiven for it, but it's often the judges, just like us as parents.
Yeah, be like, oh, come on.
This is no credit to either parent.
Yes.
This is not the behaviour we consider should be appropriate.
So I guess one of the questions you need to ask yourself, Mum, maybe, when they read the email or the message, they ask themselves, do I need to respond to it? Will it have legal implications? And then, am I responding because I want them to know that I'm a good parent? Or am I responding so that the court or anybody who reads this in the future knows I'm a good parent? Because trying to change their mind about you is never going to happen. Like if they are a nasty person or they hate your guts, you're not going to be able to talk them around to saying, actually, no, I'm a really good parent. You're never going to prove it.
I didn't.
To them.
I didn't.
It's just not worth the convincing them of anything.
Yeah.
Okay? So you, in your head, got to go, the only reason I'm even responding to this nonsense is so that I've got it on record that I didn't. Yeah?
Yeah, they probably don't have, if they're niggledy type, I'm not saying you don't respond when you're genuinely co-parenting message to message and it's not harassment.
Yeah, sure.
I think that sometimes you've got to think about your audience. If you write to them, like you said, there's no way you're going to convince them.
No.
And you're letting them set the agenda for you for the day. If you spend every morning writing answers. So that's why I'd like to keep it on a particular day.
Yes.
And you can even let them know, look, just to let you know, I'm only going to be answering all of these.
Unless urgent.
Unless it's urgent on Fridays.
Friday.
Yeah.
Or
so
a Thursday.
If it's really urgent, can you put it in the subject thing?
Yeah.
And then if they've put really urgent and they just talk about something nonsense.
Socks.
Then that really reflects quite badly on them and it's a betrayal.
So I guess that, and you could follow in your head, okay, if I write the reason why I did this or the reason I made this decision, are they going to write an email back saying, oh, thanks, I get it now, that makes lots of sense? Because if they are, then do it. Yeah. But if they're going to write back and say, and continue the fight and tell you why your reasoning of that was wrong, is there any point really?
Well, you can answer once if it's urgent, and you can answer once a week if it's not that urgent. And remember, their urgent might not be your urgent.
Yes.
And you've got to be so careful that they don't set the whole narrative that you're not speaking your truth, that you're so busy defending yourself that you're not actually doing the communication that needs to be done for your child.
Yes.
And when you've got someone like that...
you're invited to our free webinar. Whether you're stuck at the beginning of deciding to divorce or you're struggling to find your way through the legal jargon and fear of the unknown of the legal process, we are here to empower you to take control. Join us to learn what steps you can take, followed by a live Q&A where you get Lynn, my amazing mum, and family law accredited specialist to answer your questions. All you have to do is go to www.thedivorcecourse.com.au and click on Reserve My Seat. Register now for our free webinar to help you make the best decision for your future. We'll see you there. Hurry, spaces are limited, so don't miss out.
Yes. Register and when you've got today. Someone like that, one of the ways to get a straight answer from someone is to just ask one question in each inquiry. And you make sure when anyone does the hard numbers, it's always very edifying to count up how many messages you've had over a period of time, how many of them were about one little issue, and then you come out like the shining, sensible, reasonable person.
Now, when it comes to the legal side of things, Mum, with co-parenting, so if you are being shown in court as an unreasonable co-parent, what are the legal implications of that?
Well, the judge can form a view that you can't co-parent with the other person, and if they decide to give parenting to one person, the full responsibility, which is a major thing and hardly ever happens.
Which doesn't mean kids only live with that other parent. No, it means just that one parent's in charge of decisions.
Yep.
Yes.
Then you could lose that.
You could lose your...
Yeah, you could. If you're the person niggling, you could lose the right to have input into parenting decisions. It has to be extreme.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is, like you said, you appear reasonable, sensible, and never to be the one that's anything. But don't let that stop you raising legitimate concerns.
Of course. But then again, if you keep the emotion out of it, there's less likely to be slinging matches from your side.
Remember our compass. Keep it short. Keep it polite, exact. So what are we going? North, nice, E exact, S short, and W without emotion. So use our communication compass for that every time. And I think that you know yourself, if you've opened a message from another person and it's a long, long text message, you know you're in for it.
Yeah.
No one ever does it for a simple question or to tell you how lovely you are.
No. No. Well,
not in my experience.
No. So when it comes to avoidant though, Mum, I guess in the slinging matches it's not as much as responding to false accusations, but if you've got an avoidant co-parent and you're asking them, hey, we need to make this decision, can you give me an answer?
You've got to have an alternative. You've got to have an or else.
Okay.
And so what you do is you kind of, probably how you've managed them through the relationship. So you write to her and say, look, these are the steps I thought I might, these are the steps I thought I might take because our daughter needs help in her swimming, right? If I don't hear from you in a week, I'll assume you're okay with that and we'll proceed.
Right.
And that way you're still kind of consulting. That way if they don't respond, you're not writing to them again going, come on, you haven't said anything. What you're doing is being child-focused. The child needs these things. If he doesn't or she doesn't respond, you presume they're not upset with it and you move on.
And that's general advice only. You wouldn't be doing that for major decisions.
Oh, you're not going to move them to another country.
Or change schools or surgery or anything.
So it's just kind of decisions that have to be made as co-parents.
Okay.
You would do that with.
Do you find sometimes that manipulative controlling can be just like in your face, like we've heard, like the slinging matches, but then we've got members that say they do that and then they swap to, if they don't want to discuss a topic or if they don't want to get involved, they just go quiet and they become the avoidant.
Yep.
Same strategy?
Same strategy.
Okay.
Always, it's what in the old days we used to call a guillotine order, that is, it's if you don't do this, then this will be the decision.
Okay.
If you don't do that, then that will be the decision. So, and then the court's entitled to assume that if they didn't respond, as long as they've received it, and they didn't respond, that they knew what was going to happen and they didn't have a problem with it.
Can I ask you then, how's the best way to shut down an argument so it doesn't go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards? They accuse you of something. You respond because you have to. So you cover your butt. You say in there, I will present more information
if it becomes relevant.
What if they write back and complain and continue to say stuff?
I think you need to be very short. And if I've responded above, and I won't be responding on this issue again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So your aim is to shut them down. Shut them down. Water them off. Be the firefighter and water them out. And of course, think about again, why are they sending it to you?
Yes.
Are they doing it to fight with you? Are they doing it because they want your attention? Make sure...
Or evidence gathering.
Or evidence gathering, and make sure that you're not giving them what they want. And if they are doing it just to get your attention, then you need to choose a day once a week and just do it then. And then respond short or in a group if it's not urgent or super important. So
it becomes a Friday problem or whatever day you've decided to deal with it.
Which is better for your psychological health as well.
Factor it in. I've started using a planner now, so I'm an advocate of planning.
Yes, you're very organised, mother.
Not really. But I'd schedule off some time and put it in there. After you've cleaned the bathroom, then do this.
Before.
It's just a crappy job.
Do the toilet, read the accusations.
and then it's just one of your other jobs. And that will stop you being too emotionally worried about it. You don't have to think about it every day. Oh, I really should answer that email. No, I've got that factored in to do on Friday. And then when Friday comes, it's been a bit of clear air since you got the message.
Well, perhaps it's also a good idea to think about, when are the kids going back to mum or dad's?
Be careful with that.
And should you read the messages before they go? Is there any information you need to provide them? Little Johnny's been sick this week. He's on this medication.
You probably will have a quick look at them as they come in to see if they're urgent.
But that's usually the time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just before you do hand over to update them on anything that you're meant to be doing as a co-parent.
Yes, that's important.
Do that, I think is important.
But maybe Friday's a bad example then if children are changing overs on Friday. But you really do need to, once you've decided you're not going to answer it urgently, you can put it in that box, but I'd suggest you skim your eye over all of them because there could be any sort of traps in there.
Now, there was one other tip I think that you've mentioned in a previous podcast, and we've done documentation, and I think this is important and relevant here. If there's members out there and listeners out there who are like, I really just want to clear it, prove it, show it, say, no, this is definitely without a brief explanation, but a really big, long, this is what happened, this is when, you can do that, but not send it to them.
That's right. I wouldn't send it, yes. So you can do the detailed thing, you'll feel better.
In your journal.
And you'll have it there, even if you're doing a Word document or whatever. But
you don't need it later.
You don't have to send it to them because you don't want to give them, the more lines you write, the more lines they can argue over and completely do your head in.
Yeah. So maybe if you're really struggling with that internal, oh my goodness, what if they say that in court, or what if they say that I don't want to get in trouble. So write down your detailed backup evidence, really ironclad proof that you didn't do it. But then in the response, it's a short brief.
It's a denial. If you didn't do it, keep it short and don't give them anything to be going on with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard.
It's a hard balance.
My heart goes out to everybody who, you can't, you watch these TikToks that we've got some friends that do TikToks that are narcissist this and it's grey rock is the answer. Just don't respond. Don't wrestle with pigs. They like the mud. All of that. But unfortunately with the co-parenting situation, you kind of have to get in there a little bit if you are in that situation because you need to say, no, that's not true.
That's right. If you're in any court situation, really.
But once you've got orders, ironclad final orders, does that change anything? As hope for our listeners?
So if you've got final orders and it says delineates who's responsible for what sort of thing, then you can perhaps just cut and paste that section of the order that says, no, I'm responsible for schools, or or you can cut and paste something from previous posts that you've sent them about the uniform. As I said, on this date, that.
Right.
Because...
Oh, the classic work email where you write, I refer to my previous email.
Yes.
Okay.
That's that one.
Yeah.
And yes, so you can be a little bit more curt, a little bit more short with it.
Yes.
But don't be too smart alecky, because it may end up in court all the same.
Yeah.
But maybe some people need reminding of the boundaries. Or you might say to them, as we both have parental responsibility and as you have been taking them to the Gold Coast on the weekend, I also have the right to take them to the Gold Coast on the weekend or to somewhere else on the weekend, and just sort of remind them so that if they go to show that correspondence to a court ever, it's got that accusation to them. But again, keeping it quiet, keeping it concise, just reminding them that you've got the orders. And sometimes you might not have to answer at all.
Okay.
So those ones that urgent, yes, you still answer. Those ones that are just annoying, save them all up. Maybe you can wait 2 or 3 weeks before you respond.
Yeah.
And then just...
As long as it doesn't interfere with the co-parenting.
Yes.
But I think it's the slinging matches you've got to stop.
You've got to stop it and really be aware that the judges are just like parents in some ways, and they're getting sick of it. They've been out, listening to this day in, day out.
They must, like, some judges have been in court for how long?
It must
decades?
It'd be terrible, I think.
Imagine going to do that every day of your life.
Every day. And so
he said
they
and
do,
she said.
And they just see it as, so their focus, the court's focus is the children. You keep your focus on the children. If it affects their welfare, you need to
respond.
Deal.
Yeah. If it's about your boyfriend going on a date, who cares? Don't respond.
Yeah, that's right.
If it's about what colour the shoes are, is that really relevant in court? Doesn't respond. Yeah, so that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, you'll have to use your own judgment about what stage you're at, what sort of personality you're dealing with.
And what their purpose is.
Yes, and how upset it is making you, or is it not making you upset?
Yeah.
For your mental health, do you need to keep it in a container and deal with it on another day?
Yeah.
Or does your mental health require you to, like Laura said, do a journal entry and a rebuttal on the same day? But be careful, because you will find them not only dictating the kind of the discussion, the shape of the discussion, and perhaps detracting from the stuff they've done wrong, but also they may end up controlling your days, because if you drop everything when you hear that ding and go and respond, and if you're upset, if it reflects on the children, it's just bad for everybody. So mental health-wise and harmony in the family, you're entitled to get on with your life.
Yes.
You don't have to be linked to this person forever. The only thread holding you together is the care of the children, and that's the only issue that you should address. And remembering that most people have the day-to-day care of the children when they're in their care, and the big life decisions are really big life decisions. So, you can spoil a person by giving them too much information all of the time and they expect it. So it's just, you just have to work it out to your own situation. I'm sorry, this is general advice only, but you'll know what's the right thing to do for your kids and what the risk is if you don't.
Yeah. And consider your mental health. What's going to make you feel better? Okay, and what can you do to make yourself feel better that doesn't involve fanning the flames or giving more information that's going to cause more drama?
You could do yourself a little checklist. Sort of, when it comes in, be like business-like.
Yes.
A little flow chart. Is it that Eisenhower chart where it's urgent, but not...
Urgent, important, urgent, not important.
Urgent, not important, yep. And work out which category it's in. And then maybe if it's email, you'll have a category, and you'll put it in category 1 or category 2, whatever you want to set up. But you're not, when you hear the ding, you're not, oh my God, what have I got to do now? It's like, oh yes, well I know I'll sort that, and I'll either answer with it quickly, or you can even say no, and I'll tell you more on Friday.
Yeah.
I didn't do that, but I'll say
I'll
more
let
on
you
Friday.
know. I'll give you more details on Friday.
Yeah, that's right. And just that way you can flow through your day without being derailed.
Yeah.
Get some counselling.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Mum. And thank you, everyone who does our reviews. If you're interested in any of our checklists, go to www.thedivorcecourse.com.au and check it out. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye-bye, Dale.
Bye, Mum.
Bye-bye, everyone.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only, and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.